We're advancing of our Advancing Digital Equity webinar series. The Peer Learning Circle is an opportunity for us to come together and continue to have dialogue around advancing digital equity in our respective educational spaces, to strategize, to ask questions, to share practices, so on and so forth. And so that is why we are here this afternoon. So hopefully that's why you decided to join us. Just to give you a little bit of background, hopefully everyone here, which I'm looking at the names of those who are joining us this afternoon, everyone I believe has participated in at least one of our webinars for the particular series. In part one, we covered social justice and digital equity, what social justice is, what digital equity is, how do we ground ourselves in the two. We also reflected on ourselves as educational practitioners, but specifically, we reflected on teachers as being agents of change and developing their agency around digital equity, because as we know, the onus, especially when it comes to instruction, tends to be on our teachers to build the capacity of our learners in order to engage in a digital environment. So that was part one. And then part two, we really delved deep into the digital divide. Specifically, we talked about where we are currently as it relates to current research on the digital divide, who is under or overrepresented in certain areas, what digital skills look like by race in particular, and gender, so on and so forth. And then we had guest presenters. So we had our friends from Fight Back, and I actually see Mark in the room this afternoon. Good afternoon, Mark, and thank you for joining us. They came and talked about their digital literacy course as well as their digital navigator course, and how that could be of great use to adult education agencies in particular. And then we had our friend Anthony Burek from OTAN, who came and talked to us about some of the resources they have, such as the Student Technology Intake Survey, as well as their partnership with North Star. He also touched on the digital learning guidance that is available to assist everyone in adult education, specifically in the state of California, with the implementation of digital learning at their agencies. And then we had our third invited guest representing the San Diego Consortium, and they talked about the various partnerships that they have at the San Diego Continuing Education, as well as with state agencies and a private firm, Computer to Kids, I think, talked about their refurbished computers that they are partnering with the San Diego Consortium to make available to adult learners. And then they also talked about their digital navigator program. So we received a lot of information, shared a lot of resources, and now we are here to have open dialogue, because we know that the digital divide is still something that's very prevalent current day. And we still have an opportunity to discuss the ways in which we can help to close the digital divide. So with that being said, Holly has shared the link to the Google document that we'll be using for our PLC. So I'll go ahead and share my screen so that we're all looking at the document together. And so what this document does is it provides us with kind of a tool to guide our conversation. And so I see Mandalee is currently typing in the document. So if all of you can do so, please share with us. Of course, we know your name, but you can share your name again, what your role is and where you work, so your role and agency, and then also one question you hope to explore during our time together. We did previously send out a Google form where we asked everyone to kind of ask questions. We did not receive any responses from that, but we still want to give you the opportunity to address a particular question that you may have in mind that you just didn't get the opportunity to share in that Google document. So I see people writing. I see Marcus writing, Michelle's writing. Thank you so much to both of you. Everyone else, please take the opportunity to write in this document. And if you just kind of press return, kind of scroll down a little bit, that way we're making space for everyone to be able to type into this particular section. All right, I see more people are typing, so that's great. And it's also okay if you do not have any questions as of right now. Mandalia and I did put our heads together and develop some questions that we thought could at least jumpstart the conversation. So don't worry if you don't have any current questions. Hopefully, just engaging in the dialogue with one another may spur questions for you. All right, people are still typing. I actually do see a question, so I'm excited. Thank you, Mark. And I see others are typing. And so just to give you a little bit of context about this particular document, if you have not participated in a peer learning circle with us, we utilize this document to really document what we are discussing. So our discussion will be documented in this particular document. And so the second section just gives us our approach to this conversation. So this will be a lightly facilitated, time-limited discussion that's structured around a particular topic. So our topic this afternoon would be advancing digital equity. And so me as a facilitator, of course, I will be, making sure that we have the questions, access to the document, posing the question to the group, but the expertise lies within all of us. So myself or Mandalia or not, or even Mark and everyone else on the call are not showing up as the experts, but just a partner in the discussion. So of course, the discussion is for all of us and we want everyone to engage in the discussion. If you want to know more about the Peer Learning Circle model, as well as the guidance, we have a link to a document here so that you can learn more about the Peer Learning Circle model. And then as I'm scrolling down, our discussion this afternoon would be approaches to advancing digital equity. And so here are some of the questions that we have posed, and we'll get to these questions. But first, you all as our audience members, we want to address your questions first. So it looks like we still have a few individuals typing. If you have just joined us, we are utilizing this Peer Learning Circle document, and we are typing in or introducing ourselves. So we're typing in our name, where we work, our role, and then one question we hope to explore during our time together. So if you're just joining us, please take this opportunity to provide this information, and we'll get started with our conversation in about a minute or so, because it looks like the typing is slowing down. All right, so I'm not seeing any more active typing. Oh, yes, I am. So we actually can go ahead and get the conversation rolling. So there are actually some great questions here. So we'll, I guess, just go in order. So the first question posed by Mandalia is, what are some barriers that are low-hanging fruit that can be tackled to help close the digital divide? And this is a question that we are posing to everyone. So anyone can jump in and let us know what you think. And please come off mute. We're a very small group. So you feel free to come off mute. And you can also use the chat if you are unable to speak freely at this time. Looks like Mark, you want to chime in here?
Yeah, I think one barrier that is low-hanging fruit, if we were just to put in a little bit more effort, is around connectivity. I know that, we're working vigorously. Most of us in this chat are working vigorously to get our clients enrolled in the ACP. But I find that even without ACP, even before ACP, there was difficulty getting people just enrolled in non-cellular plans,
Mhm.
right? And I think that if you give a cost breakdown of cellular versus non-cellular plans, or if you give a breakdown of more specifically data, right? And give an accurate representation of what they can do with that data and how fast they will burn data, which we have. So we've had these conversations with our scholars. It really helps out because I've known a number of men and women who have cellular plans who are using them for hotspots versus actually signing up for a proper internet plan, thinking, oh, well, it's part of the plan, it's a hotspot, it will be okay. But then they can't connect consistently. They're dropping off calls every time we try to do an online meeting. And so I find that those kinds of examples really resonate, that when you actually sit a person down and tell them the pros and the cons of using a cellular plan with a hotspot versus an actual ISP provided plan, it makes a big difference.
Mhm. Thank you for that, Mark. Anyone else want to discuss barriers that can be tackled to help close the digital divide? Or I see you have, let us see your face and you come off mute. Go ahead.
Good to see you. Just wanted to clarify on Mark's comment, connectivity. I tried to search just a minute ago for Connect California. There was an initiative in the fall to get reduced pricing connectivity to families. I thought all over the state. I can't find it now. But I understand that issue, connectivity. I think for me, it's like access too. So what if I have connectivity, but I don't have a device? So I'm just thinking out loud, but I wanted to, Dr. Parker, do you remember that Connect California initiative I referred to?
I
I think I found it.
Okay. I
Um,
can't remember it off the top of my head.
okay, so I'm gonna pop a link in the chat, Burr.
Thank you.
You can take a look and tell me if this is what you're thinking. I know that there's
Yeah, that's it.
okay.
So that was just kind of a response to Mark's point, but it's not, I don't think it's that simple. There's not a simple answer. If people are having connectivity issues, I think this helps, but it may not solve all the problems.
Mhm.
I just wanted to comment that, but then I think further is access. And so a lot of our students are probably, live in an area where they could get connected. If they don't have internet service, they could. So I think the issue is I don't have a device. So a lot of our ESL students are, luckily we're trying really hard to integrate digital literacy into every class, including literacy level ESL. So we're giving people opportunities to access. I know during COVID, some schools were giving out Chromebooks or checking them out.
Mhm.
But that's all. That was my comment. I just wanted to share the Connect California and access. And I just will throw out one other thing. We have a couple of classrooms with desktop computers, and everybody said it's time to get rid of those and just let's use Chromebook carts.
Mhm.
But one of our teachers who teaches a standalone digital literacy class, even though we've tried to integrate it into all classes, we still have a class to directly address that. And the teacher said, we need to keep one lab of desktops because it's really hard to teach an ESL student who's never used a computer. It's hard to teach them on a Chromebook.
Mhm.
So we are going to maintain one computer lab with desktops.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you for sharing, Burr. Mark, you have your hand raised?
Yes, Burr, thanks so much for bringing that issue up about competing equipment, right? And preferencing one kind of computer over another, because we've encountered the same issue where we typically, almost all of our classes, we teach exclusively on desktops, particularly because we want to show the foundations of digital literacy skills, right? We want them to use an actual mouse before we introduce them to a laptop mouse pad, right? Which can be equally mystifying if you've never used a mouse before, things of that nature. But also what we found is compatibility issues in some of the classes that we've run with partner organizations where we've asked them, well, what equipment do you have? And they say, well, we have Chromebooks. And sometimes they work really well, and sometimes they don't work so well. Sometimes older Chromebooks may not be compatible with certain security features, or certain, they might pose problems when trying to get online. So while I see the benefit of Chromebooks, I do want to caution people who say, oh, well, we'll just get Chromebooks for this task or that task, because as Burr, you pointed out so well, they aren't a fix-all for everyone, right? That there's desktops that are, still have their benefit, even if they do seem clunky compared to a Chromebook. So just wanted to, build on that.
Thank you both. Thank you both. Great dialogue. Anyone else would like to talk about some barriers that are low-hanging fruit? If not, then we'll go to our next question that was provided to us by our attendees. Jerry, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
Just wanted to flag the language piece. I think that oftentimes as educators in our space, we have a focus on English language learning in a lot of ways, and that we want that to be the focus. But what I would advocate for is addressing the digital literacy piece in first language or preferred language, to remove that barrier so that they can connect with subject matter experts down the line. I don't think that the digital challenges need to be connected to language challenges. So yeah, just my philosophy, but I think that is low-hanging fruit to kind of address that piece, so that we can get them ready for learning.
Thank you for that. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, and just Dr. Parker, I was going to say we do have some additional comments in the chat. Did you want me to read those out, or I know you're sharing screen, so it can sometimes be challenging.
Yeah, I have it open.
Okay.
And Michelle says many students do not remember their Gmail login that they have to log in. And then Tanya says, anyone use laptops with a mouse? We had to get rid of our desktops and bought laptops, but I realized we need mice with them. And then, so that's a question that Tanya has.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone has a response? So everyone who's using Chromebooks, are you using them with without a mouse?
Mm.
I see at least Burr's head's nodding.
Yeah. Well, I know, Tanya, I don't know what you have in your budget, but I know that there are wireless mice that you can connect. That'll have like a little USB, because we have a couple of those in our house. So with Chromebooks, they can, just pop that into the USB, and then they'll have a mouse to use.
All right. And then Michelle says she loves that idea, any curriculum ideas for that. And I want to say, Michelle, you may be referring to Jerry's. Oh, okay. Jerry responded. So Jerry says North Star and GCFL Learn Free are two resources that are building digital skill resources in languages other than English. All right. Thank you so much, Jerry, for sharing that resource. So we will go back to the document up to where we have provided questions. So Mark wants to know, how do we tackle tough conversations about racial and gender gaps in IT and related challenges? Anyone have any ideas? And I'm just gonna copy this so we can take notes.
Yeah, one idea in the Bay Area, and I'm sure elsewhere. For a few months, I was a pathway coordinator working with colleges and high schools, and the Bay Area Community College Consortium is a great resource, and they so how do we tackle the tough conversations about racial and gender gaps in IT? Provide training. So there's what's the word? Encryption, digital security. There's a lot of new certifications and trainings in the world of IT. And my first response to that is work with HR and industry and help them to recruit, to be diverse in their recruitment, and furthermore to offer for us, for service providers, to offer training in those fields, because oftentimes we work with students that are most challenged in those areas, whether you're talking about race or skill sets. So yeah, offer training in coding and encryption and network security. And what a great idea for a integrated education and training, a contextualized, working with language learners and having the expectations that they can become IT technicians or leaders. That's just my first thought.
So Bert, just to give some context to this question, as a digital literacy and digital certification training organization, we do those things, right? We have a number of adult learners that we send into the IT field. In addition to that, we supplement that training, the technical training, with professional development training. But there's a lot of conversations that are lacking, specifically around the fact that they are entering a predominantly white, male-dominated field, and the fact that the conversations they might have, conversations that we prepare them for, such as the interview process, or how to negotiate a salary raise, or how to, have conversations with an HR department, those kinds of components, there's nuance that I feel like we aren't getting at, right? And I feel like we're sending them into these situations only partially prepared. And those are the kinds of resources I'm looking for. And I've done some research on this myself already, but just to hear from other colleagues in the field who might know something about this would be wonderful, right? Because I definitely want to make sure that we have these tough conversations in the comfort and safety of our learning environment before they enter, I don't want to say the real world, so to speak. They're already in the real world, but the IT world.
All right, does anyone have any ideas or resources to share on this particular topic? I'm very curious because this is not an area of focus that I have tapped into, Mark, but I'm wondering, I know you say you've done some research on it. What has the research, because that would be my first, lane, as you have done. So what has the research said about this particular topic?
A lot of the research that I've come across has been more, I would say, testimonial, right? There's been a lot of articles, particularly from Black and brown entrepreneurs, from Black and brown HR managers. Excuse me, my son's stopwatch is going off in the background, so I apologize. There we go. It's off.
No worries.
But and so there's been a lot of the advice tends to actually say things along the nature of, look at what other people are doing, right? Kind of follow their lead.
Mhm.
But if there's no one who looks like you or who talks like you, then there's no one's lead to follow.
Yeah.
You know, and other advice is find a mentor, which is great in the industry. But once again, if
Mhm.
there's no one who you already know in your immediate circle that's in the
Mhm.
IT world, it might be difficult to find a mentor. You know, cold calling a mentor through LinkedIn
Mhm.
isn't really something that a lot of people can do, right? Or
Mhm.
want to do.
Mhm.
So a lot of the tips that are there, they're good tips, but they are assuming that there's people there for you.
Yeah.
You know, and so I just want to prepare people when you don't have someone to lean on, when you
Right.
don't have someone to go to immediately, right? You know, one thing that conversation I've been racking my brains about, and I'm trying to create a lesson around, is how do you talk to HR about race-based discrimination?
Yeah. Mhm.
How?
Mhm.
We don't have a lesson on that right now. And I feel like that's a glaring issue, because especially for our scholars who are coming from, you know, entering these industries through non-traditional pathways, that already is kind of a strike against them in the world, whether they want it to be or not, right?
Mhm.
For them to come in and say, yeah, I have my certificate, but I don't have a bachelor's degree like everyone else here in this office.
Mhm.
Well, they might just be saying to themselves, I'm just grateful to have a job and to be in here. So
Mhm.
I'm not going to raise concerns because I want to keep this job, versus
Right.
saying
Mhm.
I need to
Mhm.
stand up for myself.
Right. There's a book that's coming to mind, and I don't know if it's specifically, because I think it's education based, but Courageous Conversations About Race by
Mm.
Glenn Singleton, which is like it's a kind of like a coaching model on how to engage in conversations about race in an educational setting. I think that may be a good, at least, resource to formulate a lesson on. So I don't know if you've used that book in particular.
I
I've
haven't.
used it, huh?
I haven't. I'm just
Okay,
looking it
yeah,
up right now.
I would look into that as a resource to build a lesson, because it does give you some very practical strategies around different types of scenarios on how to engage in conversation about race.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then Jerry has shared Hack the Hood provides Black, Latinx, Indigenous, and Asian American Pacific Islander youth ages 16 to 25 with tech skill building programs and career navigation support that are grounded in justice and support economic development and growth. And he also provided the URL for their website. So that may be another resource to utilize.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you so much for engaging in that discussion. And we do have the recording. So as I'm thinking, I'm unable to type. So I'll go back and fill in the notes so that we'll all have access to this document with all of the resources, so on and so forth. But I will pass it on to Mandalee, who will facilitate our next question.
Okay, great. Thank you. So it looks like our next question is from Michelle Parsons, and she says, what are some resources for digital resources if you are limited on budget in order to provide for all student needs?
And I want to thank everyone who's been putting some of that information in the chat, because that's great. I got it all starred and saved and bookmarked to go in and look at it even further. But I was kind of along the same lines as I believe it might have been Mark or Burr who said earlier about access. I think it was Burr, access to the technology itself. We know everybody's got a cell phone those days, almost everybody does. So making sure that your programs are compatible with cell phones is a good way to help too. Like Burlington or Aztec or Edgenuity or whatever your programs you use for your distance learning, that they're compatible with cell phones. But again, some of them really want that laptop at home or that Chromebook at home. And when you're on a budget, how do you find ways to support your students in that way and support them equitably, not just first come, first serve. It's how are we going to make sure the right people get the right technology that they need. And I see ed tech integration survey. I'm not sure if that is for technology or access, but that's kind of where I'm going with is budget wise, how do we give them the devices? The Wi-Fi is kind of cool. Connect California was for Wi-Fi, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And there's also, so I don't know if you were able to participate in session 2, but Cherie from Computer to Kids, and I think she stated, even though it says kids, they do offer refurbished devices at low cost. And then in our shared notes, I will share the link there as well as popping it into the chat for everyone. And I want to say the number that comes to mind, and if anyone was at session 2 and recalls, I want to say she said it was around $100 or $150 for a device. So that's something that, there is still a cost associated to it, but if it's not something that you find in your budget, but potentially your learners and your scholars have the opportunity to secure that for their home.
Thank you so much. That's perfect. Yeah, somehow I missed session 2. It didn't get on my calendar, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And once the recording is remediated, you'll be able to benefit from that. Once we get it up, we'll share that out as well. Does anyone else have any other resources or ideas on a budget to get those devices in our learners' hands? Mm-hmm.
And Mandalay, you're probably not paying attention to the chat, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but in our original Advancing Digital Equity PowerPoint, didn't we have a resource for refurbished devices?
I'm like madly looking for it in the background.
Okay.
So there is another resource. I want to say it's like Alliance for Technology, atrr.org. I'll find it and I'll pop it in the chat. But it also is similar to the same, Computers to Kids, where it'll find in your region by area code different organizations or resources where you can go and get a refurbished for a low cost, no cost, or a scaled cost device. And Shannon, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I missed session 1 and session 2. I don't know what happened. I think I was signed up for both of them, but I don't know what happened. So I apologize if some of this was already spoken about or I'm just way off track. However, so one of the things that we deal with is some of our students are digitally illiterate. So that brings up a different kind of digital equity. So one of our instructors actually found this, it's called Mousercise, and it's just a quick free way to help students figure out how a mouse works. And I have the link here. It's pbclibrary.org/mousing/mousercise.htm. And it's kind of a fun little game so they can learn how to use their mouse. So anyways, I thought I'd share that. I apologize if it's not the right spot, but it might be helpful to someone somewhere.
Thank you. And I did find the other link, and I'll pop that into the chat as well as into our notes as well. It's the USAC Affordable Connectivity Program is one of the parts, and then there's one more link that I'm looking for you, Michelle, and I'll add that in.
Thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely. Does anyone else have any innovative or just kind of interesting different ideas on how to provide those devices to our scholars on a budget? maybe any grants. Okay. So I just put the chunky link in our shared doc. And then the first link that I put in is the affordable connectivity. So that's another site that you can visit that I think also explores more of the EBB, that Equity Broadband Act for low cost internet. All right. Do you want me to take the next question, Dr. Parker?
I can go ahead and take it. I actually think that we have covered it. So if I'm reading the next question correctly, it's which programs can we donate unused / older technology like laptops, monitors? So who said this? Sandra, you have devices that can be donated, or are you looking to acquire devices? And if you're here, you can come off mute or type in the chat. Sandra, are you there?
Sorry, I was helping a student.
Oh,
Can
no
you
worries.
repeat that?
So I was asking, do you have devices that you are looking to donate, or are you attempting to acquire?
So we do
devices?
at our school, we do have a variety of devices that we have unused. They tend to be older models and such. We have desktops. I know we do have like an e-waste here through our school district, and they do tend to do like they'll sell the devices every like 1 to 2 years. But I just feel like as a school, like a K through 12 as well, we have a lot of devices that I feel that could be used for other individuals. And I have heard of loaves and fishes. That's definitely something I want to talk to my principal about maybe perhaps like donating these types of devices, because I know they could be reused.
Mhm, mhm.
Mhm.
And I'm also wondering for our entities that we have put in here, so like computer to kids, so on and so forth, if maybe partnering with them to
Mhm.
get the devices, and then they do whatever magic they do to make them refurbished and then able to be used by other individuals. So you may want to connect with them as well. That's just an
Okay.
idea.
Okay, thank you so very much.
You're welcome, and thank you for clarifying. And then we have Regina. I believe this is a conversation topic. So conversation about equitable materials in digital literacy / tools. So are you looking for materials?
Just a little bit more materials, yes. We do a digital tools training, but it's before I see them. I'm the secretary and our teacher in charge. They introduce digital tools, but when I see the students myself, they're still a little lost. So I spend a lot of time snippeting pictures, like log in here. This is what the image is going to look like, making sure things are equitable.
So you're looking for resources so that you're able to do that?
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone have any resources to share with Regina? Okay, I see Holly's posting the PowerPoints. Thank you so much. And I'm wondering, Jerry, you have entered in the integration strategy toolkit. Do you think that would be worthwhile? And I just clicked on the link for Regina's request.
I'm sorry, I think I missed the what the question was.
So she is looking for resources and tools to be able to fulfill, it looks like digital literacy. Like you're looking for digital literacy tools to
Yes.
use with your learners,
Yes.
like foundational.
Yes.
Yeah, so the one that you're looking at here, the Tech Integration Strategy Toolkit, is a long title that just kind of in short, is ways to integrate strategies in your everyday practice. And I think someone else was kind of talking about this, as opposed to having standalone courses. And so these would be integrations that could be used to kind of practice digital skills across subject matter, basically, is what we're talking about here. And so if you explore the bottom tabs there, you can search by integration strategies that have been created, you can search by tool, or you can search by skill objectives. And they all kind of come back to the same routines. It just depends on how you want to search for it. So sort of like tool versus standard or something like that. But yeah, it'll kind of direct you to those things. So I like to search for it mainly by these skills. That way I know what I'm targeting, and finding things that can work for my students based on sort of that particular domain that we're searching by, if that makes sense. So, and this repository keeps growing. And so, you know, definitely bookmark it if this is interesting to you, because it'll continue to be updated. Yes, and it will be, it is an app as well, sort of an app. You can install it. It's web-based, so it'll appear as an app, but it's really mobile friendly. This kind of coincides with another one of the resources I posted earlier, the Digital Skills Library. It's very similar in that it addresses the same domains, but it's a much more powerful search tool and has a lot more resources in there. And that all of those can align with the digital skills framework if you're using that, a digital literacy framework. The one that we use there in particular aligns with the Seattle Digital Equity Framework. There's many out there, DigComp and North Star even has ones, but it depends on what you're using. But I think you can find alignments there if you need to move them around. So yeah, just in short, I don't hope that helps.
Is
Thank
that
you.
helpful? Okay, wonderful. All right, so moving forward, I think we've covered all of the initial questions. We have about 15 more minutes together. So we can actually maybe take this first question. What are some of the most critical issues your agency / consortium is dealing with as it relates to digital equity? And we've kind of talked about some of them, like devices and connectivity and those foundational digital skills. Are there any other critical issues? I'm gonna go to the chat.
Sorry.
Okay, some more resources are being shared. All right, no other critical issues we want to explore? Okay, if not, we can go on to the next question. Any particular questions? You all have access to the document. Any particular question that kind of speaks to you and you want to address?
I'll speak to one of the prompts that's a little lower. Thinking back to pre-pandemic 2018-19, what were the conversations like? So, you know, that was a real pivot. We all made a deep dive into digital. For those students that weren't literate with digital learning, we either lost them or they learned to swim really quick. We all went remote. At that time, I was in a neighboring district and we gave students, we checked out Chromebooks.
Mhm.
But, you know, before then, distance learning was kind of limited. You know, for example, out of 13 or 14 ESL sections, one was distance learning pre-pandemic. Now,
Mhm.
over half of our ESL classes are HyFlex. So we've opened the door and let people participate without coming on campus. They can participate from home.
Mhm.
So definitely things have changed post-pandemic. I think it really forced digital literacy on a lot of people. And maybe that was a good thing. But now that we're out, kind of out of that, it's like the equity issue. So, okay, the school doesn't give me a Chromebook anymore.
Mhm.
So, yeah, things are different.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you for sharing that, Burr. Anyone else want to chime in about what conversations look like pre-pandemic versus what they are now? And it kind of intertwines with the question above that asks, you know, what are your agency's priorities as it relates to digital equity? Like, what are some of the active items that are being addressed? So either one of those two, if you all want to share. Anyone, or is digital equity maybe not a priority for your agency?
We do have a couple people typing in the box
Oh, okay.
as a response.
I thought that was you.
Mm-mm.
So we have all students have access to digital learning by integrating tech skills into ESL, ABE, and ASC classes, expanding certification programs. Okay. And for the individual who put in expanding certification programs, which programs are you expanding?
It was me. I'm guilty. We are looking to offer not just CompTIA certifications, which are kind of perceived as a gateway into other IT career pathways, but there's other certifications out there, like the Google IT Support Certificate and now the Google Cybersecurity Certificate. Nonprofits, I don't know if anyone knows this, but nonprofits are eligible for free scholarships. So that's a great resource to provide. And those are asynchronous courses, asynchronous virtual courses versus the live in-person trainings that we often do for Bite Back. And so we're trying to give our scholars more options, right, that meet their needs, whether it be they can come in or they need to just do these things on their own, right? The one caveat I have when it comes to Google IT certificates, though, we have had a previous cohort with a low success rate. And part of the reason we discovered is because so many of our scholars aren't necessarily used to directing their own learning, right? They need a guided learning experience. And so we, for this next iteration that we're about to launch, we have an instructor to work with them, not necessarily run formal classes, but to work with them and serve as a resources versus them having to go to like a chat board and ask questions. We also have a Slack channel that's going to be dedicated to them. So other Bite Back scholars will be able to interact with them and meet with them. So there's a couple of things that we're putting in place for the second time around that weren't there the first time around to ideally make sure that it's a more successful program this time. So that's what I mean by more cert programs. And there's also other certificates that are not CompTIA affiliated out there that we're exploring too, that might be even more amenable to our learners.
Got it. Thank you so much for that clarification and also sharing the programs as well as the scholarship opportunity. I believe that's what you said.
Yeah. If anyone has questions about that, I can put them in touch with the person who runs that for the nonprofits.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. If anyone wants more information, definitely let Mark know. Thank you so much, Mark. And then we also have a new one that says training more digital navigators. And so they're actually, oh, you put that as well? Yes, because digital navigators is definitely a newer role in this digital equity space. And so I think there was a question that asked about digital navigators. And maybe we can talk about, oh, has your agency implemented digital navigators? If so, what are their roles in supporting learners? And how can the digital navigator role be fiscally supported and sustained? So different types of funding streams. So anyone want to go into their digital navigator program if you have one?
I can speak on this a little bit. I think this is that second question is the big question I always get. I don't you recall, but I believe we met at the TDLS talking about digital navigators and my experience with that, building a program starting in 2020 that's scaled up to help serve around 10,000 adult learners now. But that work continues now that I'm with World Ed, and I'm doing that on a kind of a larger national scale now. And right now, the work that I'm doing for in that space is we're trying to create programs in city centers, major cities around the country, with some partnerships, and also to develop a sort of core curriculum training program, and that's something that has been long needed, I think. That's something that I really took away from the Net Inclusion Conference this year. So many folks were talking about how they have their own training, their own curriculum for their own programs, but there's no standard, there are no alignments, whatever, right? It's so new, it's such an emerging emerging role that the training piece hasn't really caught up to that, I think. And so we're hoping to spearhead that and create sort of a universally accepted, hopefully, and credentialed training program. And so that's kind of the big lift that I'm working on directly right now. As far as fiscally supported and sustained, that question has always been a touchy one from where I came from, because of the funding source at the agency I worked with was ADA and not block grant funding. And so we had the funds to really drive that program, and didn't have any challenges as far as financial restrictions. So that can't be replicated at every agency for sure. But one of the things that I think that we've discovered through the additional work that I've done is that we should start looking at digital navigators as an embedded service and not as a standalone job, right? So like that we're not just trying to hire somebody and put them on FTE and dip in. These duties are services that can be provided by existing folks, could be peer navigators at your school, it could be volunteers, whatever the case, could be a paraeducator that does 50-50, whatever. That can help mitigate some of those pieces of the financial challenges that a lot of agencies are facing. So there's a lot to be said, I think, about that, and more to be explored. But I don't, again, for the sake of time, I don't want to go into it too much here, but that is a conversation that we should still continue to have in that space.
Got it. And Mark, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just want to add to Jerry that I agree with him 100%. The fact of the matter is that really everyone should be a digital navigator, or at least have the foundations to do digital literacy, basic digital literacy training effectively and efficiently. And that's very much what our program is focused on, is making sure that the nonprofits that we partner with and that refer a lot of, our scholars have somebody in their organization who can provide those services in real time, so that they don't have to refer them out, right? I mean, we're happy to take them, but there can be a delay there, right? It's not like if they come into and they need assistance with an online form that day, they they might leave with the form completed, but they may not leave with the skills to complete another form, right? Or another job application. And
Mhm.
so it might be a month or 2 months or 3 months before they get in the door with us to do that and to learn those skills. And so we want people who can help them out in real time, which is very much what our program is all about.
Thank you. And thank you, Jerry, for sharing that. All right, so we have about 2 minutes together. And so are there any closing thoughts, takeaways? We have a lot of questions left that, of course, we wanted to get to, but in the essence of time, we will not be able to get to. However, if you have any ideas or any resources or anything of that nature that you would like to put into this document, everyone has access to it who's on this call. So feel free to add in those responses. And so here's just some closing questions and thoughts. What was the most useful takeaway from this discussion? So if you'd like to fill that in, we of course are interested in understanding, because again, the Peer Learning Circle is a newer model for us. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to enhance the continuum of learning as well as sharing. And so we're implementing with each of our webinars that we're hosting, we're implementing this Peer Learning Circle, like I said, just to continue to learn and share with one another and explore. And then if there are any questions for the future, and then if you would like to participate in a future Peer Learning Circle on this topic or other topics, please indicate so on this particular document. And then Jerry has shared, feel free to reach out to him. And he has shared his email address. Anyone else who would like to share the contact information, please be sure to do so in the chat so people can get in touch with you if they have additional questions. If not, then I will definitely move forward with closing. Or at least this part, and then I'll let Mendeley formally close. But again, thank you all very much for engaging with us during our hour together. I think that it was definitely a very beneficial conversation. I know I learned some new things and hopefully was able to contribute, but also definitely thank you to Mark as well as Jerry for sharing strategies, practices, and resources. I know this is part of your everyday experience and what you do in education in general. So thank you so much for being here and for sharing. Truly, truly appreciate it. And thank you all attendees for being here and sharing what's going on within your respective contexts in educational spaces. Again, that's part of why we're here, is to share with one another and explore and strategize and really think. So thank you all very much. So I will turn it over to Mendeley, who will do our formal closing.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Parker. And I too learned a lot. Again, thank you, Mark, thank you, Jerry, and everyone who contributed. As a reminder, our colleague Holly Clark has posted in the chat the evaluation. So we do ask that you take a few moments to please fill out that evaluation, as it does help inform us as we plan for future professional development. And then as we had this discussion, I had also added as many of the links as I could from the chat to our shared document. So feel free to reach out and contribute in that way and continue to go back and use that as a resource. We really do appreciate you all sharing your afternoon with us, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.